Howdy. Welcome to On the Rock Podcast. Welcome to episode 16. Let's go.
Yeah,
Justin, how you doing?
I'm doing real well.
We in the studio and we got Jordan McClinton.
Hey guys,
Thanks for
so good to be here.
thanks for being here.
Of course.
And a little thing about Jordan McClinton, he's a archaeologist. So would you say biblical archaeologist, or how do you?
Well, I would say archaeologist, but my specialty is biblical archaeology.
So basically, like Indiana Jones.
Exactly like Indiana Jones. Yeah,
Perfect.
just
Real life Indiana Jones, IRL.
100%.
Let's
100%.
go. Any like giant boulders roll at you before? Or?
There's a lot of boulders. I have been able to dodge most of them up to this point, but
Okay.
there is a lot of rocks. Yeah, a lot of moving of dirt and soil and rocks for
You
sure.
carry around like a whip, like on your waist.
In my dreams, yes, yes. Yeah. No
crazy.
Nazis that I have to fight, but yeah,
That's good.
sometimes it's a little sketchy sometimes.
Yes,
But
sir.
That's awesome.
So tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you become a archaeologist? Like, just
Sure.
give us a snapshot of that, I guess.
yeah, so I've been in ministry for a little over 20 years or so.
Mhm.
I've been a pastor at a church here in West Houston for about 15 years, mainly in worship. And part of my past, I obviously know the Bible. I've read it most of my life, and just as I was digging in and starting to study more, I felt like I was missing something. I was
Mm.
missing a little bit of the context of it. Right?
Mhm.
We read it
Mhm.
kind of with our 21st century eyes and English speaking language. And I started to realize I was missing the original context of the Bible, like what it meant to the original people that read it or understood it or lived it,
Mm.
and started to realize that it was the material culture. It was what those individuals actually, how they lived, where they lived, that I felt like I was missing. You read things like they're walking down a road, or they're using this sort of vessel of some sort, or they're going up to Jerusalem, or they're going down to Jericho. These little cues that you get when you're reading the Bible, that I just want to understand more.
Mm.
Right.
And so that led me to kind of the next season of my life, a little later in life, going back to school and getting a graduate degree in biblical archaeology.
That's so
So
cool.
that was really the first step that I took in order to become an archaeologist.
Yo, wait. So, how important would you say it is? Because, like, the Bible, like the Holy Spirit still uses it to talk to us, obviously, nowadays, and like it transcends time, kind of thing. And like it's still applicable to
Yeah, you
like
got it.
all centuries,
Yeah.
So, like, how important is knowing like those things versus, like, you know what I mean?
Absolutely. No, I mean, there's a balance, right? I mean,
Mhm.
this is the beauty of the word. I mean, it is alive and it does transcend time, and we should be able to understand it as we're translating things and reading it. But and you know, the the fear, the danger that we get into is reading our own lives into the Bible instead of reading
Uh,
the context of the
yeah.
Bible into our own lives. And so there is an element of just simple reading and understanding the Bible at face value,
Mhm.
but there is an element that does require a little bit of, again, context, that context of what it meant to them. Because remember, they're living completely different lives. They're a different time period, right? Some of the Bible is written, 3,500 years ago in some of the Old Testament passages. Of course, the New Testament, a little over 2,000 years ago, this was written. Different time period, different geography, different area of the world, different cultures, different language, of course. And so understanding where that was and where it came from so that we can then apply it to our lives today,
Mm,
I think is extremely important.
that's awesome.
I've definitely seen a difference. We got the opportunity to go to Turkey
Oh,
this
sweet.
past summer as a mission trip, and it was like they called it a mission trip, but it was really more of like a study trip, just kind of see the Bible come to life. And so we got to see the 12 churches,
Seven
seven
churches.
churches. I don't know where 12 came from. The seven churches
Yeah.
in Revelation,
Yeah.
and so we got to see all that come to life, and it truly does change your perspective because it's like you can read as much as you want, but the moment that you get to see it like actually like laid out,
Yeah.
you get a whole nother understanding, and it's so cool.
Yeah. Now it truly comes, three-dimensional, right?
Yeah.
You start to understand, you read this, but you're actually seeing it, and you're seeing the lives and the places and
Hmm.
the events that took place there, and it brings it to life. And ultimately, and I think as we're continuing this conversation, we'll get to this. I mean, it also shows that the Bible is not a book of myths, right?
Mm,
Hmm.
We
Yeah.
can read about, you know, Roman and Greek mythology, and you read about all of the pantheon of gods, and we know those things didn't happen, right? There's no archaeological or historical evidence of those events happening. Those were truly myths. But the things of the Bible, real people, real places, real
Hmm.
events that you can go to today and visit.
That
mm,
you can't just be like, show me, because they
Yeah,
don't exist. But like with the Bible, it's a history book. Like you can
absolutely.
say like, hey, this happened here. These are the people that did it, and this is how it all went down. And you can actually just see it lived out. And it's a gift to go see like, go all around the world and see all those different events and like where they took place. Even though you're not in live time, you're not, there 1,000 years ago, but you get to actually see how, that could have played out and all of that. That's cool. So where all have you actually been?
So most of our work is done in Israel, and I guess when we're talking about biblical archaeology, Turkey is part of that. And so
Mhm.
we're essentially meaning the archaeology of the land of the Bible. So, from Turkey, or kind of the Greek Aegean area, down through Lebanon, Syria, into Israel, and then even into Egypt, you would refer to that as biblical archaeology. So most of the area of excavation and research that we have done is specifically in Israel, and specifically at one site, the site of ancient Shiloh, is where we've done for the past 8 seasons.
Mhm.
We've excavated at that site. It's
what's
cool.
significant about ancient Shiloh? Like, for me, I'm not gonna lie, like, I don't know what that means, but
Yeah.
I'm
I don't
sure it's,
either.
like, in the Bible. So, like, what's significant about that place?
Well, it's very significant. So Shiloh, I think, is mentioned 32 times
Oh,
in the
wow.
Old Testament. Um, And so if you open up the book of First Samuel,
Mhm.
this is where it starts. So, or
Mm,
this is where the book starts. They're at Shiloh. If you remember the story of Hannah, Hannah and her husband Elkanah come to Shiloh. She is barren. She can't have a child. She
Mhm.
comes to Shiloh to pray for a child. God gives her a son, and she names him Samuel. And so, if you remember Samuel from the Bible,
yeah.
he's kind of our last judge, first prophet of the Bible. He's the kingmaker. So he blesses her with a son. She dedicates him, Samuel, to the Lord. He is raised at Shiloh.
Mm,
But really, the importance of it, it's the first capital of Israel.
Mm.
When Moses and the Israelites exit
Mhm.
Egypt, they
mhm.
wander for 40 years, they cross over the Jordan River, and the initial conquest takes place. And once the Israelites gain a foothold in the land, they settle at Shiloh and they set up the tabernacle there. So, this tent that they've been setting up and tearing down, the house of the Lord, this is where the Ark of the Covenant was.
Yo,
So for 324 years, or a little over 300 years, the tabernacle, the Ark of the Covenant, the sacrificial system, the priesthood was
Mhm.
here at Shiloh before
wow.
before it moved to
Oh, wow.
Jerusalem.
Yeah.
So as a biblical archaeologist, like, the Ark of the Covenant, this is a little side quest, but, like, what can you tell me about what we know about it? Like, any
Yeah.
remains? Like,
Yeah.
does anyone know anything? Like, do you have insider
Uh,
information?
I wish I did,
Oh,
right?
okay.
I mean,
I thought you were about to say, like,
from an arche
I can't say.
from an Indiana Jones perspective, right? I think it's in a big warehouse, right? With, big
Mhm.
government
Yeah, yeah.
warehouse.
Uh-huh.
That's where they stored it in the movie. Um, I mean, that is one of the most common questions of being at Shiloh is, have you guys found the ark? And the question is no. I mean, we know we can infer in the Bible that Shiloh has been destroyed,
Mhm.
um, most likely by the Philistines.
Okay.
So we know that they're during this time period they're battling. Jeremiah 7,
Mhm.
uh, it says, "Go now to Shiloh, where I made my name first known, and see what I did to it because of the wickedness of my people.
Wow.
Mm,
And so we know that Shiloh's been destroyed. And then, of course, as an archaeologist, we know it's been destroyed because we see a
you can
destruction
see it,
level
yeah.
at the time that the Bible says it should be there, around 1075 BC. Um, and so the ark then goes, it gets captured, then goes to Jerusalem. It's
Mhm.
there in Jerusalem, and it probably, in my opinion, it probably got lost during the Babylonian destruction and then exile in 586 BC. Um, I know there's lots of conspiracy theories about where it's at.
Yeah.
It's in a church in Rome, or it's in a basement somewhere. Or the Essenes took it, but in my opinion, it probably got destroyed, melted down. It's a box of acacia wood, so it was made from wood
Uh-huh.
and plated with
Yeah.
gold.
Mm,
And gold is, well, we'll talk a little bit about gold here in a minute, but gold's extremely valuable, and
right, yeah.
you don't, most people took advantage of finding gold, and
Mhm.
so,
Mhm.
in my opinion, I think it probably got melted down. And
No,
I
stop
know,
crushing my
I know,
dreams.
man.
Yeah.
There's
But
nothing to
who
go
knows?
find. So I'm kind of also kind of a side quest, but on this note, like I've been seeing a lot of people like, hey, we probably found the ark, and then also like I've also seen a lot about the potential sighting of where like the Sodom and Gomorrah, the Pillar of
Mhm.
Salt.
Yep.
Have you seen that?
I have, yeah.
Do you think that's true? Like, what are your thoughts on those two things?
So there is a site in Jordan, um, called Tal El Hammam,
Mm-hmm.
um, that is one of the the more popular candidates for the site of Sodom.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, the school that I'm getting my PhD at, Veritas International University, that school actually digs at Tal El Hammam, and so
Okay.
they have a lot of evidence that they feel that it is connected to the biblical site of Sodom. The pillar of salt, there's a lot of pillars of salt.
That's what I've
If
heard.
you're going
Yeah.
around the Dead Sea and some of the the cliffs and things
Mm-hmm.
there, so you know, um,
They claim that they've seen the shape of the body in
yeah,
it. I don't know whether to believe it or not. It's cool to think that it's that's it, but I just don't know.
yeah,
Have you seen that?
Um,
Really?
I have seen like the arc. It's like you fact check me or whatever. Like I saw a video where like you can go tour in like Turkey. It's like up in the mountains, and it's like
Mm-hmm.
where the
oh,
Silk
the
Road used to be.
Noah's Ark you're talking about.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Noah's
yeah,
Yeah,
Ark.
yeah,
And it's like this giant, basically mound, and it's
yeah.
like they've scanned it and they see where like the beams used to be. Do you know
S-
anything about that or?
So, I mean, I have some friends who do expeditions to Mount Ararat to kind of
mm-hmm.
do exploratory trips there. I don't think anything substantial has come out of that. And I'll just mention, I mean, it's not uncommon for anyone to have come across things like that on
Sure.
Facebook
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
the
It's
internet and all kinds of
clickbait.
stuff. Um, we call that unicorn archaeology. Like, just you just have to be careful when you're
Hmm.
finding things like
Sure.
that, because of course anything, of course, can be on the internet. But there's also just a lot of people who just post things out there because
Hmm.
it's exciting and it sounds
Right.
good.
Yeah.
And so, as an academic, as someone who's really
Studied
kind of
it.
focusing and
Uh-huh.
studying, I try to lean towards,
Like skepticism kind of
yeah, I
or?
mean, be a little skeptical, but also just focus
Mhm.
on, published peer-reviewed articles and things like
Right.
that.
It's an interesting balance because it's like I really want to believe it because it's
Oh,
like it's
sure.
it's very real. Like you can find stuff like that because it's in history. So
Yeah,
if it's in history, there's proof. There's evidence somewhere, right?
sure.
And so it's like you're trying to balance that, but also it's like I don't really
Yeah,
know if that's like
yeah.
believable.
You
I
know,
just want to believe it.
the giant skeletons that are
Yes.
found,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
like, the 3-mile, tunnels underneath the pyramids.
Hmm.
There's, I think you have to take a little bit of skepticism when it
Right.
comes to some of
Yeah.
that stuff.
For sure.
Yeah,
So those are some of the things we don't know about. What things have you uncovered, discovered, like,
sure.
or any of your colleagues while
Felix
you're out
excited
there?
to talk to us.
Well, I guess first, I mean, talking about Shiloh. So it being the place where the tabernacle stood for over 300
Hmm.
years, where the priests lived, where the original or initial sacrificial system took place, right? So every year, people are coming to Shiloh to sacrifice for the atonement of sins, right? They're also bringing gift offerings and grain offerings, something of value and worth. And so I guess the question is, have we found anything at Shiloh that would connect to that? And uh, we found a lot. So the first
Ooh.
is we figured that we would find some aspect of the tabernacle or the remnants of it.
Mhm.
And so the expectation that was maybe we would find a platform, like maybe where the tabernacle stood, because the Bible
Mhm.
does say that it was a tent, originally was a tent. Um, but so about 4 seasons ago, we started to uncover a massive building. So most of the site, at least where we're excavating, it consists of about a 5 meter wide fortification wall that goes around the entire city.
Mhm.
And then right inside of that are storage rooms, so very kind of small walls. But then we hit this extremely large wall. And typically, when you find a building of that sort, it's one of three or four things. It's either an administrative building, a palace of some sort, a temple, or in this case, possibly a tabernacle. And so we got excited and we continued to excavate. And over the past 4 seasons, we've uncovered corners of this building.
Mm.
So three out of the four corners have been identified, which allows us to
A
now
measure.
to measure it and get the
Uh-huh.
dimensions, and not just the dimensions, but the proportions of it. And so we were kind of blown away that it matches the exact dimensions of the biblical
No
description of the
way.
That's
tabernacle.
That's
crazy.
sick.
So it was on a 2-to-1 ratio, right? So the holy or the holiest part to the holy of holies, the most holy part,
Mm.
was the smallest portion. And then the direction that it was facing is running east to west. The door of it was open to the east,
Mhm.
which is very similar to, or it's identical to the temple in Jerusalem facing the east.
Does that
Um,
have to do with the sun? Like, what's the importance of the east and west?
I mean, it is an ancient direction, right? I mean, a lot of these ancient religions and cults, they were facing east. The rising of the sun,
Yeah,
and so there's always an eastern direction in most, at least Near Eastern or Middle
mm,
Eastern uh,
gotcha.
religions.
And so you also said that it had, like, pretty big walls, right?
It did.
Um, so I kinda you already said it's, like, kinda like, part of a building that's of importance because it's, like, administrative or a
Yeah.
temple or a palace. Well, what's the purpose of, like, the thick walls? Like, protective or
Well, it just meant it was a big building, right? And so the bigger all of these buildings are made out of stone,
Uh-huh.
and so the bigger the building, the larger the walls that you want to have, so they don't the higher they get, they don't tip over.
Gotcha, okay.
But it also just kind of signifies an important building.
That's
Yeah,
cool.
yeah,
That's really cool.
yeah. And so we found other things around in and around the building, altar horns. So
Yo.
four-horned altar is kind of is indicative of this type of altar that is used in biblical times. Um, Pomegranates, so ceramic
Mhm.
pomegranates. I know that sounds a little strange, like why would there be pomegranates? But the pomegranate was the only fruit and kind of icon that was allowed into the tabernacle. And it was actually Leviticus says that they're woven kind of alternating bells and pomegranates on the hems of the robe of the priests. We found three of those. We found a murex shell with it's a snail shell, which also sounds a little strange. But this is the type of shell that you're extracting purple dye from.
Mm.
And purple is a royal and
Yeah.
priestly color. They're using that in their garments. And then again, the directionality, and this kind of leads me to, I guess, my most exciting area that I have been excavating, and this is the area of my research and PhD dissertation, as I'm writing on this area. But just east of this building is what we call a favisa, or a sacrificial bone deposit. And so it's I mean, you can kind of think of a trash dump for sacrificial objects.
Mhm.
Mm,
So, I mean, at this point, tens of thousands of animal bones have been extracted from here.
mhm.
Ornate vessels, like beautifully, chalices and bowls and goblets that are used in, a sacrificial component, and then they're being ceremonially destroyed, and then buried. And then the most exciting thing, we've found at this point, 7 pieces of gold and
Mm,
1
Whoa.
piece of silver.
Wow.
And I mean, gold is rare just, inherently.
Uh-huh.
mhm.
It's very valuable, and you didn't lose gold. You didn't, if you lost it, you went to find it. But finding gold as an archaeologist is extremely rare.
Mhm.
I've been approached by, you know, archaeologists that's been digging for 40, 50 years, and they would say they've never once found a piece of gold, let alone 7 pieces.
Wow.
And so there's something special about this area.
Mhm.
And so it seems that these early Israelites were, they're bringing an animal to sacrifice. They're bringing grains and fruits and vegetables as a first fruits offering,
Mhm.
as an offering to God. But they're also bringing something of value. They're bringing
Mm,
something of worth, ascribing value to God and bringing it to Him, and not just offering it and then it's being reused. It's being offered and then it's gone. It's being buried, as completely out of sight, out of mind. So,
that's cool.
Wow.
yeah.
That's crazy.
So how is finding these crazy things and like doing all this work, how has this strengthened your faith and like I guess the reliability of the Bible?
Well, it's certainly strengthened my faith. People ask me all the time, well, I mean, does archaeology prove that the Bible's true? And I always, kind of skirt around that question a little bit because we're not trying to prove the Bible, even though I think elements of archaeology does in fact prove the
Sure.
Bible. But it's more of an illumination of the biblical text and a synchronization, right?
Mhm.
Mm,
What you read in the Bible, you're finding similarities in the ground, right? The culture, and a lot of these aren't huge, right? I mean, we're not making like, we're not finding a sign that says, Samuel was here or, Jesus
yeah.
sat here or something.
Yeah.
And so history is a little bit different than maybe what we understand today, where we can pull up our phones and watch a video of
Right,
something.
yeah.
Um, so we have to interpret and understand the culture and interpret the biblical text into what we're finding. But it's to answer your question, I mean, it's encouraged my faith immensely. I mean, there's nothing that I think has necessarily been found through biblical archaeology that has disproven the Bible. And I love um, that most of the finds are little things, little details, right? Uh, a name that might be mentioned one time in the Bible, like an assistant to a king, or a random comment, or that's mentioned that then we find something in an inscription or something.
Mhm.
Because if the little details of the Bible is true, right?
Right,
Then
yeah.
then why wouldn't the big things be true,
Right,
right?
yeah.
Like
Mhm.
why would they be picking out teeny little things
Mhm.
here and there, a name of an administrator, this little detail that's written in one, obscure passage somewhere? Because a lot of scholars would say that the, the majority of the Old Testament was written much later, and this was all made up. And we call this the documentary hypothesis that after the exile, when the Israelites came back, or the Jewish
Mm,
people came back to Jerusalem, that's when the Old Testament was written. The Pentateuch, the stories of Moses, none of that was written. But how did all of that stuff get in there, right?
yeah.
Mhm.
The even small things like, the cost of something, like how would they account for inflation, sort of stuff. And so, knowing that the Bible is a historical account and not just a book of myth should
Mhm.
encourage your faith, right? Um, I can't prove to you that Jesus died on the cross for your sins, but I can prove that he died on a cross,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I can't prove necessarily that he, historically prove that he resurrected, but I can show you evidence that he did, right?
Yeah.
And so there is always going to be an element of faith that comes along with it. But unlike other religions in the world, like we don't have a dumb faith, right? We're not just blindly walking around believing
Mhm.
what we believe. There's evidence.
Mhm.
There's actual historical evidence for the things that we believe.
Mm.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
So God called you, would you say, to archaeology or like led you that way?
Yes. I mean, I have a bit of a um what would I call it? Um a mission in life, I guess. Well, let me back up. So kind of going back to Samuel, right? I mean, Samuel, when he is called, he's in the temple or in the tabernacle. God calls him, and Samuel says, "Here I am, Lord." Right? And that's kind of my cry of my life. Like, if I can, if I can, like, be willing uh, and be ready. Here I am, Lord. Right? Send me
Mhm.
wherever you want me to go. And it's easier said than done for a lot of people, right? Like we
Mhm.
Sure,
say these
yeah.
things, like I want to, go where the Lord sends me. And it's sometimes a little more difficult in practice to step out in faith and
Yeah,
follow
for
Him.
sure.
And so I try in all of my all the aspects in life to when the Lord opens a door to walk through it. And so I think I mentioned, being a worship pastor for many years. Archaeology wasn't on my radar, although I loved it. I certainly watched Indiana Jones movies.
Mhm.
I loved history. I loved biblical history, but I never in a million years would have thought that I could pursue and achieve um, being an archaeologist, a biblical
Yeah.
archaeologist. And so that step was kind of a cool process.
Mm.
Yeah,
So
walking.
dope.
So how do you balance all of that then? Because you're like you're a father, you're a husband, you're an archaeologist, you lead worship, teach in seminary and all of that. So how do you balance all of that stuff all at the same time?
Great question. And I thought about this one before I came because it's complex.
Mhm.
Um, so first off, and this is to you guys who aren't married yet, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And I tell my kids the same thing. Um, your who you choose to marry is the most, besides accepting Jesus as your savior, is the most important decision
Mm.
of your life.
Mm.
Um, because I couldn't do this without my wife. We're in ministry together. We've got each other's backs. Before I even stepped into this calling, we talked through like what this would mean, right? And so, like for instance, she's teaching a seminary class tonight, and I'm going to pick up kids. So it's like we get each other's backs in ministry.
Wait, so where do you find the Proverbs 31 woman? Like, do you have a secret? How did you do
Please
that?
share it with us.
Oh man. Um, I don't have an answer for you.
Dang
And I
it.
know
It's just
it's
luck.
and I know it's getting a little bit more difficult,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm. It's all that charm.
Yeah, yeah. But also like the providence of God, right? I mean,
Mm.
Yeah.
we were both seeking the Lord in our own paths, right? Our own
Mhm.
lives. And the Lord brought us together. And yeah, it's been a cool journey. But to continue that, I think when you are walking in obedience to the Lord, and you're walking with God. I
Mhm.
mean, I think it's Matthew 11. Matthew 11. My yoke is easy, my burden is light.
Mm.
Mhm.
And if things become overwhelming to me, like one of the indicators is maybe I'm not doing what the Lord has called me to.
Mhm.
He's going to. The Bible also says, I think it's a proverb, like He will give you sufficient grace in if you ask for it, right? And so again, like doing the things that I do, one like it is his yoke is easy, right? When I'm doing the things that God has called me to. And
Mm.
then also just as kind of life continues and I probably couldn't have done all of these things in my 20s. Just as you mature a little bit,
Sure,
as
yeah.
life settles down a little bit. Also, my kids are a little bit older now. I've got a little bit more time. I've also relaxed a little bit, right? um, and and I don't know, God gives you the shoulders to burden to carry things during
Mm,
certain seasons. I guess logistically, it takes a lot of time management.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
a lot of acceptance that like this is a season of life. I think I mentioned I'm at the final stages of my PhD. So I've gone through a master's degree in biblical history and archaeology, and then rolled right into a PhD program. And so a lot of classes, a lot of papers, a lot of labs and workshops and things that I needed to do. And I'm now at the point where I'm just writing and researching. And not to say it's easier, but I just recognize that it's this season of life. It's not supposed to be easy right now. Um, Goodness, there's another verse that's coming to mind. Yeah, it's left me, but
Mm,
yeah,
yeah. That's definitely something that I'm trying to work through right now because it's like it feels like God's just been showing me like just how much is on my plate and
yeah,
then how much I'm trying to like balance and also trying to do it alone, you know?
yeah,
It's like just trying to hold everything in my own hands, and I really just need the support of the Lord and like allowing Him to help me carry all that. It's like school and then doing this, um, serving at church and just doing everything in between. It just feels overwhelming,
yeah.
And I'm like, God, what am I doing? Like, do I need to take a moment and rest? Like, do I need a Sabbath? Am I not doing enough? My quiet time? Like, what is it that I'm falling short in that I can do better to carry this? Because I truly believe that I'm doing what you want me to do. I just don't know how.
Yep.
Like how can I give this to you? And so I think that's one of the things that God's really like just trying to show me here lately. So that's really helpful.
Well, and I think it just came to my mind. I think it's a Lamentations verse, and I'm probably going to botch this, but it's essentially saying that, like, you should plow with the yoke. Maybe it wasn't low. You should plow in your youth, right? Or you should work hard while you can in your
Hmm.
youth, right? And I'm much older than you guys, but I'm still young, right? And that was part of this decision because I saw people going back to school later in life to pursue a calling, and I knew that this was going to take me a long time. I
Hmm.
didn't want to start when I was 60, right? I
Hmm.
didn't want to start this process. I still have energy. I mean, I'm in my
Right.
mid
Yeah.
40s, right? And so it's like, it. This is kind of where I should be, like at the peak of my career, sort of a thing. And going back to school to become an archaeologist seems a little crazy. But if I truly want to do this for the Lord for the long term, like I want to take advantage of the time that I have,
Oh yeah.
and so also staying healthy, um, you know, but working hard in your youth. I tell people, I mean, this is you should be training for raining right now, right?
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
this is the time of your life where you're prepping, and some of that's
Yeah.
like sharpening of the iron, right?
Hmm.
Taking you through the flames and the hard times and the struggles, and I'm certainly not advocating overwhelming yourself,
Yeah.
right,
Right.
to the
Yeah.
point
Yeah.
where you have no free time or no margin in your life. But don't be afraid of like hard work
Yeah.
and being a little bit burdened, I guess, right?
Hmm.
Mhm.
In certain seasons of your life,
Yeah.
because it'll pay off when the real pressure comes, right? Later, or whatever the Lord has for you, ministry. I mean, this time of like tempering and preparing and training,
Hmm.
I think is extremely important for Christians and believers
Hmm.
as you're maybe stepping into a ministry or a calling or something.
Yeah, it goes back to the point of maturity. It's like the more that you allow yourself to be forged and be
Yeah.
put through the fire and through the rough, then it allows you to grow. Like, I mean, James 1, 2 through 4 says, like, kind of joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you experience trials, because, it gives you endurance and growth and whatnot.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's like allowing yourself to be pushed out of your comfort zone. One, it shows you that you're not um, allowing yourself to be cut short of just like what God can use you in. But then secondly, it allows you to prepare you for the future
Yeah.
and push you in ways that you can handle even more in your faith and push you in ways that God can use you in ways that you'd be like 2 years before, like, there's no way I could even do that. But now you've allowed yourself to grow, and then you can use that in the future, right?
Yep.
It's so
That's
good.
good.
Is there something that makes like a good archaeologist versus a bad one? Is it the PhD? Is it the hard work or the experience? Or can
Is it
anyone
the
do
clothes
it?
you wear, the whip that you
It's
have?
definitely the clothes you wear. I tell people it doesn't matter how you, as long as you look cool while you're doing it, then
You get
not
the hat.
not really. I do wear a hat, but not an
Let's
Indiana Jones
go.
hat. There's a couple of ways. I guess to answer your question, hard work would probably differentiate a good archaeologist from a bad archaeologist, if there is a bad archaeologist. But yeah, anyone can do this, if it just takes the time and the effort, right? I
Mm,
think there's probably two routes to become an archaeologist. One's probably a little longer and takes more time, but volunteering at an excavation, which
mhm.
our excavation at Shiloh, we're 90% run by volunteers.
Wow.
So we have the largest excavation in Israel, because we have so many people that come and join us as volunteers. And then individuals like myself, square supervisor, area supervisors, field archaeologists, who then kind of manage all of the volunteers who come.
Mhm.
But you know, you could come and then continue coming, right?
Yeah.
And kind of do what I did. You start at the bottom, like any organization. You do whatever you're told to do. You become reliable. You become indispensable. You work your way up, just like in any organization. And then at some point, you could call yourself an archaeologist. Probably the more traditional route is the academic route.
Mm,
Is typically when someone graduates with a master's degree in archaeology or in biblical archaeology, which does, if it's a good program, will also require experience, right? Excavation experience. So you're also getting the field
Mhm.
experience as well. But once you graduate with that master's degree, you can technically call yourself an archaeologist as well. And then, for me, I kind of got to that point and I thought to myself, well, I do want to impact the archaeological world. And really, the best way to do that is through publications and through writing and research. And in order to do that, you need to have the PhD. You need to have the
mm.
doctoral terminal degree.
That makes sense.
Yeah, in order to have that, just the credentials to publish. And so that's where I'm at now. And so I'm already an archaeologist based on the experience that I
Mhm,
have and the master's degree. But then I'll have the doctorate degree, which also allows, teaching at the collegiate level and
mhm.
the university level.
That's exciting. Justin knows this. I like to kind of press some of the hot buttons a little.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
And so I know this is a little out of because you're doing like biblical archaeology, but like, like you go to the science museum and they have the dinosaur skeletons and it's like this is from millions of years ago and all of
Yeah.
that. Like, what's your take on that? Like,
Cool.
I guess anything on that, or maybe a better way to ask would be like, are you a old Earth
Uh,
versus a new Earth kind of guy, or
There's a hot button issue.
yeah? Sorry to put you on the
No,
spot.
no, no. It's good. It's good. So I know brilliant young Earth scientists and old Earth scientists. I think there's a compelling case for both. As an archaeologist, it's extremely difficult. I'm not a geologist. I'm not a paleontologist,
Oh,
right?
that's that's
For
what it is.
Yeah, for
I was like, I feel like there's something else, but maybe it's an
and
archaeologist.
so I'm probably not going to give you the straight answer that you're looking for, but I'll add a couple of things here. So first, uh, I I I admit that there are some very interesting things going on in like the Creation Institute right now, finding DNA in dinosaur bones. Um, and I haven't done a lot of research on this, but like I think like cells and flesh and things like
Yeah,
that in dinosaur bones,
cool.
that were previously assumed to be hundreds of millions of years old. And so I do think there's some interesting things that are going on there. And of course, there's Answers in Genesis, the Creation Institute. These are all awesome resources for people if they're looking for young Earth sort of research. I
So
think
do those cells point to being older or newer?
well, it'd be newer, right? I
Newer
mean, you're
since they're still
certainly not
here.
going to find DNA that's hundreds of millions of years old. So
Okay,
that would
cool.
lend itself to a an earlier, creation. And then I guess from an archaeological standpoint, we use carbon 14 a lot in our research. I mean, I
Mhm.
I have animal bones um, that that I'm taking, extracting, or sending it off to extract collagen and do carbon 14 dating, and we use those dates in our research and our findings. But there's an interesting thing that happens, and so many scientists ignore this. But at a certain point, and it's about 1400 BC is where this time period starts. We see an offset start to take place,
Hmm.
where the carbon dates and the archaeological material start to offset by it starts about 200 years. But as most things
Interesting.
compound, right? I mean, you can
Mhm.
imagine like 1 year and then it starts getting bigger and
Okay,
Right, yeah.
bigger.
okay,
Um,
I think I've heard this.
yeah, and I mean, it's a scientific, known offset that takes
Mhm.
place that most, I assume people just ignore that that's taking place, and they're taking these numbers at face value, these hundreds and millions of years.
Mm.
And so, there's, I think the numbers that we read are inflated
Yeah.
by millions and millions of years. And then also, I mean, if you read goodness, Michael Behe, I think, um, Darwin's Black Box. There's a couple of really good books on on the mathematical
Mhm.
inconsistencies of evolution, right? And so if you're talking about evolution as the way of the world and how we all got here, and the only way evolution works, obviously, is in a extremely long old Earth.
Mhm.
It literally mathematically doesn't work. Like
Mm.
there's not enough time. And so like we know how long it takes for a cell to evolve or to, do this, and one little cell to do one thing. But in order for the complexities of our world to have evolved
Yeah.
all individually, and the known expansion of our universe, right? Because we know how fast it's expanding.
Yeah.
Like there's literally not enough time mathematically for all of that to have taken place.
Mm.
Mm.
So there's a lot of really good evidence, and I know that you wanted me to give you a date or something,
No, I like that. That's great.
because I think we can get into trouble with these dogmatic, like, oh, the Earth, it is 10,750 years or whatever, right? Um, because we really don't have any evidence, archaeological evidence of like a pre-flood, like, and that would make sense, right? It would have wiped out anything that was existing before a,
Mhm.
a flood took place. Um, but it's hard to historically and archaeologically gauge civilization that far back.
Mhm.
But also, I mean, God is God, and I mean His creation, right? I mean, it took 7 days, but and I'm not necessarily a literalist, right? That the Bible, 7 24-hour days, and one
Uh-huh.
of the reasons is when, how are you gauging 24 hours, right?
Mhm.
Um, I think it was day 3 that God created the sun and the moon, right? And so days 1 and 2, how are we gauging? Is it 24 hours? And there wasn't a lunar cycle or a
Ah.
solar cycle going on before that.
Yeah.
And
I
so
have never even thought about that. That's crazy.
yeah, it's again, it's like you could get into these like it must be this.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But having conversations like this, I think are good. It gets people thinking, and it doesn't mean that the Bible's inaccurate. It doesn't mean that the Bible is, if every single word is literally what we understand in our English
Mhm.
understanding. And this kind of gets back to my original, comments of um, it's helpful for us to understand how the Bible was written, why, in what form it was written, and what in what style it was written, poetic style or historic
Mhm.
style, or um, it's helpful for us to work through some of these things.
That's
Mhm.
awesome.
Yeah.
One of the last things I wanna hear about is, like, the, I guess, ministry you're involved in that's at Shiloh, like, I saw you on YouTube.
Yeah.
What are those resources? How can people
Sure.
help out or get involved in watching that?
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess just in order to get involved, you can go to digshiloh.org.
Okay.
So that's our website. Um, so the organization that we excavate with is called the Associates for Biblical Research. So unlike other digs that may be through a university, or through, in Israel, some of them are through the government, so that the Israeli Antiquities Authority. So ABR, the Associates for Biblical Research, is a consortium of many organizations. So, universities, our school here in Katy, the Bible Seminary,
Mhm.
is a large portion of the volunteer base there. And so you can go and sign up. I tell people, if you truly want to see Israel, see the Holy Land, see the land of the Bible, like, go with an archaeologist. Um, and so we go for 6 weeks. I'm not there for the entire 6 weeks, but
Whoa.
for the first week is typically a tour. And so we do like a kind of a tourist tour, but you're led by an archaeologist, and so you get to see kind of some off the beaten path sort of
Oh
sites.
my. That sounds amazing.
And then you dig. We have 4 weeks of excavation, and then the last week is, we do a restoration week, and there's also a tour that week as well. So you can come for any component of that. You can come for a tour and then a dig for a week or two. You can dig for a couple of weeks and then tour at the end. So there's that, and it's also cheaper than going with just like a general tour group.
Really?
And so, yeah, I mean, you pay your own way, but your fee will get, your hotel, your food, 3 meals a day.
Mhm.
And so once you get there, you don't have to worry about a whole lot. But we'll work you pretty hard.
That's cool.
And then on YouTube, we have a a channel called Digging for Truth, um, that has a lot of really good information. You'll learn a lot about Shiloh there. And then we've got a magazine. This latest magazine, I actually wrote, the cover article on it about the gold at Shiloh,
Whoa.
That's sick.
called The Trowel and the Truth, which is a cool
Yo.
magazine. Yeah, and so, a lot of really cool stuff going on there. And we're a Christian, evangelical group of archaeologists, and we're just trying to do, like, good scientific, research in archaeology. And most people look at us and like, oh, they're just Christians. They're just, making this stuff up. It's like, we're not putting this stuff in the ground, right? It's
Yeah.
we're truly
Bury it and then we
finding this
dig it up
stuff.
again.
Yeah. But it's important, and I think in light of a lot of the things going on in our society right now, it's important to engage in the arena of ideas.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And so this is all we're trying to do. Right? There's so much, in academia and things that are going on right now that, um, are doing their best to quiet a lot of these things,
Yeah.
Mhm.
for many reasons. But we're here just trying to speak truth and show what we're finding.
Yeah.
Man, keep it up.
Thanks, man.
That's awesome.
This past summer, I mean, technically we were supposed to go to Israel, but we went to
Yeah.
Turkey instead, but it's still just super cool. But like that might be kind of a cool thing to go to Israel, especially with an
know.
archaeologist. That'd be
Come on,
really
man.
That's
cool.
like bucket list for
Dude, you
sure.
guys, you guys would love it. You'd absolutely love it. And I was there actually, right when all of the Iran
Yeah.
stuff went
Uh-huh.
down. We got
Wow.
stuck there actually.
Oh wow.
So we were there during the attacks.
Uh-huh.
Was
And
that scary or were you at peace?
I was at peace. I mean, certainly it was a little nerve-wracking, right?
Yeah.
To see, the amount of missiles that were being shot, and taken down. It was a little impressive too, seeing the Iron Dome in action there.
Did you like look up and like
Oh,
see that
sir.
happening?
Oh, sir. Yeah, sure.
No
Oh
Yeah,
way.
my.
yeah, quite
Oh,
a
Ugh.
that's
bit. I mean,
insane.
the missile raids would go off, you know, all through the night. And so looking
That
out the
that
window and
is
seeing it.
Indiana Jones.
Yeah, and so, we couldn't get out. The airport shut down. All flights were canceled. The airspace was closed. I think it ultimately ended up being a little over 2 weeks that it was closed, but we ended up, driving, taking a bus south, and we crossed through Egypt and
Mm,
went down through the Sinai Desert, then back up the Suez Canal into Cairo and, flew to Istanbul, Turkey to get out.
That's
yeah.
So we
crazy.
called it our reverse exodus from
Reverse
Yeah, for real.
Exodus.
yeah, from Israel.
I can
Yeah.
imagine that for real.
We drove past drove past Mount Sinai and kind of through the Sinai desert where the Israelites wandered. So
That's cool.
it was
That's
cool.
so cool.
One last question.
Yeah.
If you had one piece of advice for your younger self, specifically in the faith, or for just someone else who's walking that walk, what do you think that piece of advice would be?
Great question. Um, I mean, this kind of lends itself to something I said earlier. It's easy for us to get distracted in life. And not that, I mean, we all have to work jobs and we all, most of us will have families and we have to support our families. And it's easy to get distracted, I guess. But, if God's called you into something, um, usually he's calling you to a life of maybe not always being comfortable and always being
Yeah.
convenient. And again, I think it's easier said than done to say, Lord, I'm here, I'm ready to go, I'm ready to follow you wherever you call me to. Um, it's a lot harder to do that in practice. So I'd say just if the Lord has called you to something, man, stay true to that
Mm,
and know, expect that things are gonna maybe be a little uncomfortable sometimes, right? I mean, back to what I talked about, as this is kind of my God's providence of weaving archaeology with worship, right?
mhm,
We think of worship as this easy thing that we do. We walk into a building and we sing some songs on a Sunday morning and we
yeah.
check off this box. Worship's done, and then we go and we live our lives. But understanding that worship is a lifestyle, right? Like
Preach.
we should be living worship,
Mm,
and worship shouldn't just be this cheap thing, right? I mean, I mentioned it. I mean, it's in I think Second Samuel. David says, "I will not bring an animal to the Lord that costs me nothing." Right? I'm not going to bring something that's not valuable to God.
mhm,
We see this with the early Israelites. They're bringing gold into the tabernacle. They're offering that to God, and so I think as a young follower, I would say, like, your worship of God, your life, like your lifestyle, right?
mm,
Because worship, again, is not just this thing we do on a Sunday.
right.
Your life should be the value that you ascribe to God should be evident to the world,
Mm,
right? Like they should
mhm,
see that God has value in your life, that you value God.
mhm.
Amen.
That's
Yeah,
so
So
good.
good.
Well, thank you again for joining us
my
and for giving
pleasure.
us your time and your wisdom and your
Yeah.
experiences. It was really
I
cool.
could pick your brain like all day. It's so cool.
Yeah.
Part two, man. Come on.
Let's
Part
go.
2. Check us out on YouTube, Spotify, Instagram, and TikTok. And we'll see you guys next time.
Stay on the rock.
Yeah.